Hi, everyone. Uh, my name is Anae Agostini. I am CEO of CID Insurance Programs, and I'm going to be talking to you today about running a successful commercial agency. My background is in running both retail many years ago and a wholesale commercial agency. And so I hope to share some of my experience over these last 35 years that I've learned. So let's get started. Okay. Webinar summary. This is pretty much just a outline of what we're going to be talking about today. But I hope to be asking you some definite questions about your agency and you know, what you where you are now, what you want to achieve, and then giving you some ideas on how to move in that direction. Of course, as you know, you're on mute. Of course, you're able to hear, but you won't be able to speak, but your voice is important. So please pose them in the chat room off to the right, and I'll stop and answer them as we go along uh, because your voice is important to us. There'll be a short survey, and that will pop up right after the webinar. We really appreciate your feedback on that. Any suggestions, whether you like the webinar, or any changes or suggestions. Okay, so let's get started. This is where we take a look at your agency operations. Where are you and your team spending most of your time? It's a really good question to ask yourself, because and I have to address that in our operations on a regular basis, because it's not just a one-time thing, because everything changes over time, and there's a propensity for people to lean towards service or doing this rather than taking that extra step to do projects and work on new business and that kind of thing. So I bet if you really are honest with yourself, you'll find that most of your time is either spent on service and or renewal. And that those are the two things that um, service being the culprit, the biggest culprit that takes up most of your time, and that in itself can be a problem because you want to be looking for business that you can write that is going to be less service intense. Next question: what percentage of your book is personal lines, commercial, and life? That is also an important question. If you're heavy personal line, your problem will be in the servicing of that book. That is heavy service, and it's a lot more stressful than commercial because you're dealing with people's personal assets, and they and along with that comes a lot of emotion and feelings. So commercial is business to business. It's a lot more um, steady, stable, less emotional, less drama than personal lines is going to be. So, if you put this all on a triangle, I mean, obviously you'd like yourself to have, at least a 50% commercial book, and maybe just a little bit of accommodating life as needed, and maybe the other 50% is personal lines. But that at least a significant portion being commercial. What results are you achieving? Well, that's, if you're really answering the first two questions right, then you're really going to see that sometimes you're on a hamster treadmill and you're just going in circles, or in a row, around in the circle, and that becomes a challenge because you get sucked into it and you don't even see that you're there, and you're just doing the same thing over and over every day, and you're not really getting anywhere. In fact, most of the time, if you measured your results, you'd find that your book is most likely shrinking because there's not enough time spent on new business. Okay, so now that we've we've had a moment of honesty there, let's determine some goals and objectives. What results do you really want to achieve if you take the time to look at it? And it's not a one-time thing; it's an ongoing thing because your agency is a living, breathing thing, and everything changes all the time. So, with my company, I'm always having to look out there and see, you know, how can we be more effective at what we do. So first of all, you'd want to evaluate renewals and customer service efficiency. So I said that those two things can end up being most of what your time and any of your employees' time is spent on, and you're not necessarily making money because with renewals, yes, you want to renew your policies, but you're not going to renew every policy. Someone sells a business, so people die, things change, and they move away. Uh, so you're going to lose renewals. It's inevitable. So obviously, you want to be looking at this. And when I mean efficiency, how efficient are you? Do you have systems in place that make it really efficient for people to handle customer service and handle the renewal process? How efficient are your operational systems? Well, that's going a little bit a step further. Do you have a renewal process that's very cookie cutter, that that um, that your employees can efficiently handle for you and take care of your insured? Determine what percentage of goals for book of business mix. So that's um, that's what we were talking about previously. You really have to decide how much. Do you want to write more commercial? That would be my recommendation. So then you really need to establish the goals for that. But I have a question. How do you best determine how much a commercial account manager can handle in terms of book size, a client, etc.? That's a really good question. Um, it, it because number one, I would we work on systems, so all of our underwriters, which is slightly different than yours, is um, it follows the same process for service and for renewals and for new business, by the way, as well. And so you would first want to make sure that you had your systems in place that were efficient and that not everyone was just doing their own thing. And I know that sometimes is hard to do, to achieve, because lots of people want to do it their own way, but that isn't necessarily the most efficient way to do it. So you really have to have someone who's a team player in that position, right, in order to accomplish that, and then step back um, and assign a certain amount of accounts. Our operations manager handles most of that, and I think sometimes it's just a matter of seeing how well they do with the book that you give them and how efficient they are. Some people are slower than others, and that's you really have to. Some people are extremely efficient and functioning on systems, and so I think it's the person that you have in the position that making sure you have the right commercial account manager in place that can be most efficient, and you will get more out of them in achieving efficiency with that book. Hopefully, I answered that probably the long way around, um, but it's a little bit of a hard question to answer. I'm just trying to give you some direction to go in. So let's go back to our where we were, and mix a book of business mix. That's what we were talking about. So I would definitely make your goals, set them for more commercial as opposed to trying to grow more personal lines or life. Production growth versus policy in force, which I call PIF growth. So you really want to take a look. You want to establish how much production growth you want. You want to grow your production. One of the ways that you can identify that sometimes is by, are you growing in PIF, policy in force? However, you have to look at both, because your balance of renewals, because you're obviously going to lose some renewals over time, and right now premiums are going up at renewal, so you're going to gain some premium, but not necessarily PIF unless you've got a great plan in place for achieving new business. And both renewals and new business become really important. And in your new business is where you can gain that production growth, as well as PIF growth. And then consider a balanced policy premium size of your commercial book. That what I want to say is there is what I call small, medium, and large policies. And really, when you're looking at this, small is you're going to have a lot of small policies most likely. And right now I'm talking about commercial, so I'm not talking about personal lines. I'm not talking about life. We're talking about commercial. And so your smaller policies are going to be easier. We've got a quote system for phone quoting and web quoting, and that for those small policies, I recommend using that because it's the easiest way to get quotes without needing to fill out an application or have the client fill out an application. You just need a small amount of information, and I would go that direction on small accounts. But you want a balanced book. You want medium-sized policies, which are 15,000 to 50,000 to 50,000 is the range for medium-sized. And then if you're good, a good commercial writer, then you go for those large ones that are going to be that 50-plus range. And those are that middle range is probably the sweetest place to be. And the large ones, you gain them, but they're very competitive. And when you lose them, it usually hurts. So I say, you always you're going to write a lot of small anyways, but always focus on, set your goals to write some of those medium-sized policies because that's going to help your production growth. Okay, so in achieving the results, I've talked a little bit about this. You really want to streamline your operations and develop systems. And you've heard me speak about that on the last slide, where you really want to have a renewal process. You want to have from beginning to end. We have what we call a 60, 30, 10, which is for renewals, and it works great. You're out working on you start the renewal 60 days out. The proposals go out 30 days prior, and then a reminder goes out 10 days. That's a system you can use yourself, and it makes it really easy. So that's what I mean by developing systems and having templates. We've got templates on our website. If you don't see things, I say visit our broker tools and go look at our templates. That's a great place to help with your developing your system. You want a marketing production plan and a budget, and we're going to talk about that in a few slides. You also want to develop your company branding. We will talk about that as well. And then manage your production results. It's really important to do that. And then last, build your agency team. We will talk about all of these in more detail as we go through. But here, let's start with new business. And frankly, this is just a simple equation that can be used for both new business and renewal. So X date plus presentation plus close equals dollar signs. So that is really basic, but it's a really interesting thing. X dating would be remember I said start that renewal at 60 days or start working on an X date for a new business client. You want to work at ideally about the same time out, 60 days out, so that you're ahead of the game. And then you want to be able to gather the right information and make that presentation. formal presentations for both new business and renewals. And then never forget, you have to close, you have to follow up and close both your renewal and your new business opportunities. And then that's really what is the dollar signs becomes. You've closed the sale, you've renewed the policy, you've bound the new business policy. So this is an important, simple equation, but it's powerful. You have to think of all parts. Don't miss ex-dating, presentation, and close. Okay, here's another way to manage your new business and manage a renewal. It's a different way of looking at it. So you manage your renewals by effective date, but we manage renewals at our office by month. So we are looking at them each month, and sometimes we have 3 or 4 months out at a time, and we're evaluating our renewals as we go. But for new business, it's a very different beast. It's a challenge. It's a constant challenge, and if you wait too long to measure your results, then you waiting a month is you've missed. It takes probably 45 days before you really realize that you're not going in the right direction. So it's hard to turn the ship around after a period of time. We recommend every week that you measure your new business results. How much production did you incur and bind weekly? That way, if you see a trend starting to happen, it's so much easier to turn around and change direction and change your approach in order to meet your goals for new business. So let's talk about how you would obtain some of that new business. You want to understand commercial marketing. How do clients learn about you? Well, some of you probably are very experienced at this already because this is your bread and butter. This is what you do. But community involvement, referrals is a big one. If you're doing a good job, your clients are going to recommend you to others. Word of mouth, which is very similar to a referral. Recommendations, which is also online searches. That's a whole subject in itself because social media has become a really important way that people find vendors or an insurance broker such as yourself, and then marketing efforts or materials distributed. So these are the main ways they're going to find you. Talk to find out what your customers think about your service and product. That's a great, maybe get some testimonials. Ask them about their experiences with competitors, and then census data on your target market. So that would be interesting. So when you're in commercial, you may decide to, focus on a few classes of business so you could get really good at them. And that would be a great way to find out more about that target market. Okay, so if you're going to make a marketing plan, the center of influence is really, it's going to be found within your community. And obviously your reputation as being trustworthy and credible is going to be, and an expert, a specialist at what you do, professional, that's going to be highly regarded within a community. So the basics of this slide is really to leverage local centers of influence. And you're at the center of that influence. It's really, and we live in these big cities, but within these cities there's small communities, and that's where you probably would want to make your focus known. Okay, so building your local center of influence is going to be uh, some things that you're probably already doing. So that we're going to move through this part. But if not, it's really to know that it's a relationship built business. So it's really about not being afraid, you know, to be. It's really being a good a good person, professional, a friend, a kind person to people, being active in your community, joining the local chamber of commerce, volunteering, getting involved with neighborhood associations, churches, schools, charitable, as I said, volunteering for charitable and fundraising organizations. That's an absolute great way to meet people. And that, people work for companies and we're talking about writing commercial insurance. So it's you're going to want to target certain maybe businesses out there that you could, obtain referrals or leads from for writing commercial insurance, credit unions, realtors, car dealerships. So commercial marketing, you're going to want this goes a little bit further than our last slide, business councils and local associations. But let's talk about what you can do. It's really important, and you really join Toastmasters. You've got to learn to be a good speaker, a good presenter at what you do, and really be an expert at what you do, and be able to share that information with others. And I think that is a real key to people being that center of influence. So, holding information sessions at events and meetings, really valuable. Network with local business owners and find value that you can bring to them that can be a value of why they would want to do business to you. Actively participate in your local events, and then sponsoring local events in target industries is valuable as well because you're going to get a lot of attention when you sponsor. And that opportunity you need to be prepared for and be able to make, you know, pitch what you do and be out there and bring some value to the table. So, how much time and money can you spend on marketing? It's an investment, and you've got to make sure that it's a good investment so that it performs as such. So, uh, so how much should you spend? You really want to, having and tracking a marketing amount is more important than getting the number exactly right. Probably true. And I'll talk on the next slide just a little bit like the philosophy of uh, of knowing which one, you know, which way to go, how to do it. Second is knowing that you can have the right budget amount and spend it on the wrong things, as I mentioned. You really need to get value from the money that you invest in marketing, and you need to evaluate whether you, over time, whether you're achieving that or not. So let's talk about, how much do you spend? How do you figure this out? So the experts, you know, say spend 2 to 8% of your gross sales. So, and that may sound like a lot, so you may want to move to the lower end. But in order to write commercial, you have to generate leads. You can do that by marketing yourself, but you're going to spend a little bit of money, maybe on sponsorships, to join trade associations where you want to focus on for businesses, um, and all of that is going to cost them money. Some people use um, like uh, a marketing telemarketing service that generates leads for them that does calls for businesses that they select, classes of business, and then they will generate and set appointments for you, or you can just buy the list yourself and make those calls yourself. So there's lots of ways, but all of it's going to some degree, is going to cost money. Another thing to consider is you really want your social media presence to be there. On a commercial basis, I think it would probably be more valuable. Um, I think it's important to have, like, maybe on Facebook, to have a presence as a business person, but LinkedIn tends to be um, the most valuable. And this is another place where you may want to consider a digital marketing, service where they actually will do all the work for you to get, people coming to you on LinkedIn. We get a lot of people that sign up for our webinars at our company, or that come to us from LinkedIn. And so I suggest strongly that you take a look at that. If you're able to manage it yourself, great. If not, look at a digital marketing service, and which wouldn't, you pay them for a few hours a week, um, for to manage your social media. So that's one way to look at it. The other way is at the lifetime value of a customer. So how much is the average profit that would be made over the lifetime of a client? What's the average number of years you keep a client, and then determine how much you're willing to spend to acquire that customer. That's another way of looking at it. Both ways are equally good. Sometimes I think the percentage is a little bit easier because it gives you some grassroots concrete numbers to work with. And I would start on the low side and then measure your results. Okay, we haven't talked about your branding. As a commercial agency, you want to create what differentiates your agency from your competitors. I'm looking at that all the time. For me, that's what makes us successful as a wholesaler, because we're not the biggest wholesaler, so we have to really do a great job at what we do in order to compete in the competitive environment. You want to identify the segments that will be most responsive to your unique brand and value proposition. So, for commercial, it's probably going to be a business approach, and I think there's always an opportunity. You have to be able to deliver what you brand yourself as, right? That's super important, because otherwise it's the branding and what people experience is not going to be cohesive. So that becomes really important. But if you're good at what you do, then you need to find the ability. You want to create a brand message that appeals to the segments and business owners that you're trying to highlight your unique differences. So how do you develop that brand? What do you want to deliver to your customers? I was just speaking on the last slide, that you need to really think about what it is that makes you good and valuable to customers, to your clients. And as I mentioned earlier in the webinar, ask them, get some feedback from your clients on what they like about your agency, and ask what they don't like. If there's any changes or improvements that they could see. And what do you want your agency identity to look like? That would be, what's that image that you want to portray? Hopefully, it's one big things would be that they're so happy with how you take care of them, and your knowledge that makes them feel that you're the expert, that they would want to tell all of their business associates that to use you as an insurance broker. And then, what qualities does your brand represent? I've talked a little bit about that already. How will you express your brand to your customers? I think that's important. And that, again, is your website, your social media presence, your marketing material, even all the way down to all the templates that you use for new business and renewals, so that you've got, what is that image that you're trying to portray? It should be one of professionalism and that you're an expert in the industry. Okay, so let's talk about managing your commercial marketing. Now, this goes into a little bit more detail. This is like creating a system for managing X dates. So you're out there getting all these leads, getting these connections, and you're getting all this information. They're not all going to be things you can propose insurance uh, for the client right away. Because why? Because there's an expiration date, and that's what we call the X date. And you're going to need to create some kind of electronic filing system for your risk profile. So you get, you connect up with someone. They say, oh, I don't renew till November, and so you need a electronic filing system where you're at least putting these in, by expiration date, and hopefully you're gathering some information that where you're creating what we call a risk profile on the client, and that you put it into your electronic filing system, and then you actually start you diary for 10 weeks out, and you start working that client 10 weeks prior to that it comes up for renewal, and that way you're able to properly do a good job, take your time to gather enough information, propose in advance, at least 30 days in advance of the effective date, and have a marketing strategy. So and put it to work. Your marketing strategy really is probably the stronger the relationship you can build with the potential client, and your ability to gather a lot of information and put together a really valuable insurance proposal that brings value to the table to the client, and that really by far goes beyond what their current incumbent broker has done. You want to prepare weekly sales goals for premium and PIF goal. So you want, like, we're going to measure it weekly, your new business goals. Let's make sure that you have a number that you want to reach. What is, take a look at your renewals. What is your retention? That's going to tell you how much more new business production that you need. Is your retention 95%? Is it 90%? Right? So you at least got to be growing, in new business at least that much, but that would be just breaking even. So you need to set your goals accordingly. Make contacts, data bind, as we've been talking about, and then follow that sales equation for your new business and your renewals. Okay. Managing your commercial book. Now let's talk about renewals. And this is going to be short and sweet, but treat every renewal like new business. Treat it like new business. Commercial is not that service heavy. You may not talk to a customer but once a year, and that's at the renewal. So treat it like new business. Be professional and reach out to them. Pick up the phone and call them. Don't just send out renewals. Manage by report. That I mentioned before. You want to manage monthly and have your expirations by effective date. And again, we're in the month of June. We could be finishing up May. Could have and could be looking 60 days out. So you're in July and are already into August and starting to look at your renewals. So you could have 4 months in front of you when you're working renewals. Know your retention and lapse ratios. So as I've mentioned, that you need to measure that, and that's really just, what is your renewal premium and how much of it did not renew, and then you're just doing the math to establish what that retention is. Managing policy audits is another important thing with renewals, because it's so easy to lose your renewals after you've renewed them if audits have not been managed. And then at every renewal, ask for a referral. That's super important. Okay, so like I said, measuring and refining, you have to be evaluating all the time. So here's some questions to ask yourself. Are my marketing strategies building awareness of my agency? Ah, that's an important question to ask. Are your marketing efforts reaching the commercial prospects you desire? That, because if you don't have a concerted effort in marketing for what the type of commercial business you want, you're only going to end up quoting what we call uh, your bush calls that run you around the mulberry bush. They are um, basically um, junk business that comes towards you. Marketing efforts are meant to reach out to the type of business that you want to write. And then are you treating your renewal book like new business? Okay, this is one that a lot of people um, are concerned about a lot of the time. How to find good people and how to keep good people and how to train and motivate your team. So I'll tell you a little bit a secret. For all the years that I've been in business, there's it's 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 a big challenge. We sometimes we do at least two interviews when we're looking to hire, sometimes three, because we really are trying to find everything out we can about that person as to whether they're gonna, they've got a great attitude. Um, they're not gonna break under stress, and you know, they're gonna be a good fit for our company, and that's sort of in a nutshell what we measure. But my secret is I don't hire from the industry. I know, but it's because we are very systematic, and we our hiring process, we pretty much have been, since I would say for at least 20 years or more. We've been hiring college interns, paid college interns, and they do a lot of the administrative work. They support our underwriters and help run the operations portion of the company. And when they graduate, if the fit, if they're a good fit with our company, we offer them a full time career position, and that's been a big part of our success. But that has been really um, has achieved the most stability. Our average employee has been with us probably 7 years. So we really we treat our employees really good as well, and that's really important. We have a very thorough training process. Our director of operations does all the training, and they are trained properly, and that's another part of it. And it's one thing to teach someone to do the process, but you have to teach everyone, basically cross train for everyone to do a little bit of everything in an office. So don't hire an assistant for yourself that you're going to have do just little things. Make them part of the whole agency so that they can, if you were on a phone call, they could fill in and support the agency, not just you, in a limited capacity. So it's important to cross train people and have them be able to support the agency, not just the position, not a position that you hired them for. Hopefully, let me know if you have any questions about that. But that was just my 2 cents about building your agency. So last but not least, how can CID help you? We are a small wholesaler, but we are based out of San Diego. We write in 15 states, and we are really, really good at what we do. Our underwriters are experienced and responsive. They are a delight to work with. Uh, we also provide a lot of education and broker tools that are available on our website. So please visit to to see what we have. And Jacob will send we do a little broker tour. I think it's like 15 minutes. He'll send that out after this webinar, and so that you could walk through the webinar in 15 minutes and see some things that you may not have seen before. And then again, submit your applications to CID Insurance. And I wanted to, last but not least, show you just a quick. Here we go. Wanted to show you the quick. This is our detail. This is on our website, so you can print it out. Jacob will send it to you as well after this webinar. But it just gives you an idea. This is a long list of things that we write, and but it's not everything that we write. So you could find our applications online. You can find our phone and web quoting online, and you don't need an application for the phone and web quoting. So this just gives you an idea of the extent that we can write for you. I want to. One last question before I sign off. How do you find your college interns? Well, that's a good question. We advertise. We actually are close. We're about 2 miles from San Diego State, and so that's been helpful. But I've had my office further away. We just do, we run an ad, and we used to run them at the colleges themselves. But we have found that and I can't remember the service that we use, but we just run an ad for a part-time position, and usually we get, and then we say in the ad that it's ideal for a college student. And most of them want some office experience. They're trying to get out of the retail and food industry, hospitality industry. So they're looking to get some real hands-on business office experience. So it really has been very successful for us. So hope that answers your question. And I want to thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. If you have any questions for me, you can always send them to info@CID Insurance, and Jacob will get that over to me, and I will answer any questions. If you want to talk with me, we can arrange, a separate get together on GoToMeeting and talk further. So thank you for joining us today.